As of now, I would like to call upon the Chief Executive Officer at Bitwise, and that is Mr. Dhwanit Malani. He'll be joining us on stage. He's right in the front, and he'll be having his keynote address, which is Disruption to Innovation, tying down to what me and Shagun did on the stage. Welcome, sir. The dais is all yours.
With some very delightful insights from Dr. Chaudhary, I do want to sort of take that conversation a little bit ahead also. But before I start, I also want to say that I was quite filled with pride when I was witness to Rashmi's performance and the way it really sort of made sure that, you know, all of us are there to be the winners. So thank you, Rashmi, for that inspiring performance. So moving on, there is a documented chat with ChatGPT. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit so that, you know, we sort of set the context for all of this. So the question posed to ChatGPT was, do you understand anything at all? So the answer that came back was yes. The second question that was posed was, do you have conscience? Do you have a sense of morality? The answer came back was no. So the third question that was posed was that, do you have independent thought? To which ChatGPT responded saying, no, I don't. So essentially it said is that while the answers are conflicting, one of the key things that I lack, which is the conscience and morality, is not because I'm not trained on it. It's because I'm a language model and you are a reasoning machine. And I think that part of the conversation where it defined what it was and what we are sort of sets the entire context of what AI is all about. Which essentially brings to the point that AI applies its methods and creates results. It is for us humans to make sure that those, how significant or attach a significance to those results and then sort of, you know, take the decisions forward. And therefore it is extremely important for all of us to be impressed with AI but not be overwhelmed with it. That is one key piece that I think is very, very important for us to understand. Therefore, the key part again comes in is, are we going to be enslaving ourselves or are we going to be enslaving AI for our betterment? Are we going to be monitoring it? Are we going to be ensuring that it is one of the many tools in our toolbox as against it overwhelming us completely? And I think a lot of those, it is moving in that direction in terms of the governance that we are trying to put in around AI and ensure that this is what happens. So, coming over to the talent piece, and essentially that is what has ended up happening, is that across organizations, and I'll sort of now come over to the talent piece, across organizations what has happened is that we've all got overwhelmed. We all look at ChatGPT, we all look at the fantastic responses it gives out, and there is this whole whale of screen where we don't know what it is doing behind. And since we don't know what it is doing behind, we are fearing it. And this has come as a disruption, but obviously we will have to innovate and we'll have to make sure that we are up to it. So what does that really mean? So for an organization, what does it mean to be AI enabled? So it essentially means is that these emotions that come out from people, I don't know what is happening, or I don't know how to go about it. I don't know how to empower myself with AI. I don't know how to consume AI. I don't know how to create AI. Those emotions are the ones that we need to solve as part of the entire talent upskilling that we have to do to tame AI, so to say. And it is all about emotions. It's all about human. And therefore, AI can't solve that problem for us. We have to solve that problem on our own. So I'm going to move into a sort of a case study of what we intended to do at Bitwise, and I hope, I'm sure a lot of companies are doing that, but I hope there is something different that you may find in what we ended up doing. So the whole point essentially was that when this came on, there was a lot of buzz. We talked about jobs going, we talked about a lot of jobs getting redundant, but the whole point was we have to reflect on all of this, right? And we have to make some decisions of how we ensure that it doesn't happen, or at least attempt to make sure that it doesn't happen, or the impact is very minimal. So those reflections, which again are very human and can't be done by AI, sort of came through, and it all ended up being that there is a need to have conversations about all of this. Those conversations can't be based on superficial knowledge and reading about AI on the internet. There are millions of stories littered around internet, but those are the ones that end up overwhelming. So what sort of conversations are we really going to have about AI? And that's where the whole idea within the organization was that it was a simple way of that would be, okay, let's set up some training modules, let people go through the training, let them understand what AI is all about, and it's sort of done and dusted. And then whenever a project sort of comes in, since we are in IT services, whenever a project comes in, we'll take care of it. But I think it had to happen a little bit more deeper than that. Those conversations had to happen in a manner where there is a connect between say the management group, the managers, and people in terms of really talking AI. If there was just a training that was set up, training would have been done, implementation would have been driven by the market. So the whole idea here was to look at it from two perspectives, have people wear two hats. One is that of a consumer of AI, and the other is that of a, so to say, creator of AI, or an intermediary of AI for a business function. So when a consumer of AI, from our perspective, our simple goal was, how do I put AI as a tool in our developers or in the entire software development life cycle? And that essentially made us ensure that it was not just the training, but through the entire development life cycle, right from the requirement phase to deploying it in production, to production support, where are the areas where AI can actually help us bring in efficiencies. And the whole intent was not to look at AI as a mode of convenience, but how can it bring in efficiencies. But there's a very slight difference between convenience and efficiency. And one of the examples that constantly keeps coming up is, suddenly one fine day you receive an email from a person that you've known for a long time working with you, and the email tone has changed. You can't relate to that email because that email has been written in a very different manner, a lot of flowery words. And what has ended up happening is that the reader has now gone into a thought process of how has this email come through rather than focusing on the message. So this is convenience, where I've used ChatGPT to draft an email and send it out. Versus from an efficiency standpoint, there are a lot of times that you need the first draft, which you can then work through and create and put in your personality, put in your emotions to that email, so that when that email is going to the reader is focused on the message and not on who is this new person or how is this email got generated. So these are like the very nuanced differences between convenience and efficiency, and we wanted to make sure that that is also comes in there. That when AI is implemented in the entire software development lifecycle, how is it that you are going to ensure that there are efficiencies in the way, and you are not putting in conveniences where, say as an example, I upload the requirement document, I get a code, that code I may or may not even check, I may not even develop or rather test and deploy it in production, thinking that if it is come from AI, it has to be right. Now this is exactly where parts of human reasoning, part of understanding of really what is it that the business needs, those are the things that come into play, and they are embedded throughout the life cycle. So when I want to test it, I may have test cases being written by the AI, but I want to make sure that they are reviewed by me, they align to the business requirements, and associated test data also gets created, and that entire process is followed. When it comes to deployment, DevOps, or any of those other aspects that we keep hearing about nowadays in the technology world, where is it that AI can be embedded all the way through production support, where if the system goes down, how is AI going to respond to it? And if that response is right, if that response is ethical, if that response is ensuring that there are no business losses associated to any fix that may go into production support. So there is a lot of human element associated to all of this when you are the consumer of AI, and in our industry, the consumer of AI essentially is in this part. But talent is not just limited to technical talent. Talent is also available in HR, talent is also available in recruitment, and also all other business functions. And that's where, how do you ensure that those functions are not threatened? How do you ensure that you sort of pick their brains to put in AI in a form that it is an efficient way of further bringing in efficiencies within the entire system? And that's where we build sort of groups of SMEs and developers. So I have learned something. I have understood how it can be, how AI can be embedded into the entire life cycle. Now I have opportunity to also implement the AI packets into the system where they can help not just the developer get a better handle on when I develop an AI code, how do I test it? So I have something that goes to ChatGPT and that comes back to me, whether that is right or wrong. So there has to be a testing associated with that. How do I deploy my AI packets into production environment? How do I ensure that they are integrated into the current systems? So those are the experiences that the development or the technical panel gets. And there are other exposures that rest of the business functions get in terms of actually understanding the capabilities of AI, and therefore the fear or the overwhelming part about AI that is sort of spreading a little bit settles down. So you start seeing all of this as a tool for betterment, for efficiencies, rather than it potentially taking over my job. And if I am AI enabled, then I can ensure that whatever those are there, I can use it in the right manner. So this was sort of a broad level, how do you call it, a case study that was implemented, which essentially helped. It's a work in progress case study. We're continuing to evolve from that point onwards. We've built that AI into our offerings, but the point that I'm sort of trying to make is that it has helped bringing in efficiencies a lot, and we've consciously focused on that it doesn't become a tool of convenience for people and therefore creates issues in a later time. I also wanted to quickly touch upon some aspects of how academia can essentially make sure that the people that are coming out from the universities are sort of AI enabled. We've been talking about machine learning, we've been talking about data engineering, we've been talking about a lot of these other aspects where courses have been developed as part of the academia. But I think it will be important for us also to look at some aspects of AI which have now got evolved. I know for a fact that everybody knows that Python, R, and all of these have been used in the past, but that fundamental programming I think is going to be very important, and we should continue to focus on that aspect. Look at various other databases that AI has started using, like vector databases, which are not part of the curriculum. And I can share that list with Chinmay, and who can send that out. But that's what we see as a need, therefore I wanted to share that out. The entire data science piece, that is something that we've not looked at it from a university and from a skill perspective, we've not looked at it in depth. So, the entire piece from data preparation to data visualization to finding various unknown relationships between data, that whole part, of course, needs to be done. We should definitely have a course on AI ethics. I think it's important for us to understand what is it that AI can't do, and where is it that we need to step in and make sure that it is reined in. And what else? Give me a second. Deep learning frameworks, that's another piece that we should. So essentially, I think it will be important also for us to look at it from two personalities. Some personalities are well suited, or some personas are well suited for commercial deployment of AI, where they end up consuming the AI services, creating applications, integrating AI into current applications, and rolling them out. And the other is the research piece. And that's where I think focus is needed for us as a larger community to make sure that that part is something that we don't lose out on. So how do we ensure that research on AI also happens as much as it's happening in China, as it's happening in US, which are the two major countries that have invested a lot in AI. I think that's one part there where we need to invest from a research standpoint. And of course, the practical projects and case studies, those are something that even universities can look at. What are the various daily challenges where AI can be embedded, give those as projects to students and have them go through this entire life cycle of understanding how an AI application is developed, deployed, supported, used, all of those aspects. And finally, it's important that AI also is used as communication skills. A lot of times what ends up happening is there is a sort of a gap between what the business wants versus what the technical developer really understands. An example on this was that I was building something within my house, and I wanted the architect to develop something. I was trying to communicate that with the architect, couldn't. Finally, I ended up going to Delhi, put in some prompts, created that image that I wanted to create, and I sent that to architect. What it did was essentially reduce the timeline from say 5 hours of conversations of trying to explain what I really want to 2 minutes of conversation, because there's a visual representation of what I really wanted, and it sort of moves forward. So that's the way I think we will also look at how businesses, what they want, what they're seeking, we are able to translate that into something that the developers understand. And that bridge is a very good bridge where BAs or the business analysts can actually use AI at a huge advantage. And such way all the way down the multiple streams. And finally, of course, the key thing that we shouldn't forget and we should constantly focus on is what are our strengths. Our strengths are reasoning, our strengths are analytical skills, our strengths are emotions, our strengths are communication skills. Those are the ones that we should continue to enhance within the people in our universities, within our organizations, of course, to make sure that it continues to remain as a toolbox within a employees' larger toolbox. It remains one of the tools and doesn't overwhelm all of us. I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.